Hey everyone, Cynthia here with the Nameless Homestead. I thought I would shoot just a quick, fun, spontaneous video on the top 5 things that I wish I knew before I got goats. So number 5 in the 5 things that I wish I would have known before I got goats would have to be that it is a very common misconception that goats are really tough animals whose digestive systems can handle anything that you throw at them. Eat everything including a tin can, right? Well, unfortunately, that's an old wives' tale. Goats are actually extremely sensitive digestive systems. And while they'll certainly nibble and attempt to eat anything and everything that you put within their face, it's definitely not a good thing to let them eat anything that they choose. There's even a lot of plants that are toxic. For example, Piper, hi sweet mama. Our herd queen, the first year that we moved out to this homestead, nearly died of rhododendron poisoning. Thankfully, I had a comprehensive first aid kit available for my goats. I will put a card up for that video if you guys want to know what I have in my first aid kit. I was able to get some activated charcoal tablets down her throat in a fast enough time to save her life. Mwah. Hello, Pagekins. So yeah, goats, while cartoonishly depicted as being able to eat the t-shirt right off your drying line, really can't handle it. They're basically walking digestive systems. If something goes off in their stomachs, it affects every single part of their entire health. So it's very important to keep their food down to pasture, free of noxious weeds, which there are plenty of lists out there of what's poisonous to goats and what's not. Puckykins. And free of debris that could get them sick, something that could get stuck in their throat, and just to have fresh, clean water, access to hay and pasture, and limited grain. I could easily say that the number 4 in our lineup here that I wish things I wish I would have known before I got goats is how incredible they are at escaping fencing. Our first 2 years on the homestead, we were constantly dealing with them crushing down fencing by climbing on top of it and putting their feet on the top of the fencing and smashing it down. Just cleanly jumping over some of the fencing like deer, and otherwise being so abusive to it and so clever about it. Cut to Puck opening up the gate and letting out all of the animals for yet another rodeo. Dang it, Puck, you're so bad! Oh, Puck! Oh! In the end, after trying many different kinds of fencing, from cattle panels to woven wire and various other types that were left here on the homestead by the previous owners, we settled on solar chargers. Having a solar charger, even just one strand on top of your wire fencing, like we have here, helps dramatically. It keeps them from putting pressure on the fencing and damaging things or even trying to escape. The charger was less than $130 to get, and it's definitely, out of all of the fencing types that we've tried, the cheapest fencing to buy and the easiest to install. So whether you do a line of hot just on the top of the fencing you already have, or if you go pure hot wire, it's definitely now my preferred choice of fencing for all of my livestock. Number 3 in our list would have to be understanding the difference between homestead quality goats, as I've personally coined it, versus purebred or show quality goats. Now, when I first got goats several years ago, I got the first goats that I found as a good deal on Craigslist. Penny and Piper. Piper! Hi, pretty! Now, don't misunderstand me. Penny and Piper are really good goats, and I really lucked out in the purchase that I made, especially with what little research I had done on the front end. But it kind of depends on what you're going for. I ended up switching gears on my homestead and moving away from lower production, mixed breed, homestead quality goats that can't be registered with the American Dairy Goat Association and who just don't produce as much as the fancy, intentionally purebred show quality goats. because of the fact that the babies that are born from my purebred goats are just more valuable than the homestead quality goats. And of course, you know, they provide a lot more for us for less feed conversion because they were intentionally bred that way. There's nothing necessarily wrong with homestead quality goats, but if you're actually trying to turn a profit or break even, you're gonna have a much harder time with it with those homestead quality goats. If you just want them to clear up pastures for you, be weed and brush control, pets, or you're just not looking to do 4-H shows or any of that sort of gig, homestead quality goats are great. But you definitely need to be mindful. Sorry, Cookie just did like a 2-foot vertical leap and it was too cute. I wish I would have got that on camera. You want to be mindful of this thought process and the direction that you want to go as a homestead or a breeder before you make your purchase. I'm never going to get rid of Penny and Piper if I can potentially avoid it. Somebody's bickering over there because I love them so much. But in reality, if I put on my big girl pants and decided I needed to make a hard decision for the benefit of the production level and profitability of my homestead, I would have to have them move on to different pastures and bring in more purebred, show quality, high quality dairy goats to replace them. They're actually kind of watering down our potential as a homestead. But what can I say? I got them, fell in love with them, and I'll keep them for as long as we can. Come here. Oh, who's that pony in the camera? Who is that pony? Do you see her? She's so pretty. She's a pretty pony. Who is that? Selfie cam. Another really common misconception, and the number 2 in our list today, Paige, you'll see if Paige will demonstrate for us, is that goats will mow your lawn. They will not. They will eat everything you love, all of your trees, all of your bushes, all of your lavender, all of your lilac, all of your roses, before they touch a blade of grass, more often than not. Goats are actually browsers, not grazers like cattle or horses. They don't prefer grass. They most prefer seed heads of very tall grass and the young shoots of bushes and trees. This very fibrous material aids in their digestion, and some trees, like ponderosa pine, for example, hold chemicals inside them that can actually act as a natural parasite preventative. Not effective as a dewormer and not a great idea to feed pregnant goats that much ponderosa pine, but it is something that they crave for good reason. So don't get goats thinking that they're going to keep your lawn nice and short for you. If that's what you want, get geese. Geese are really good at keeping turf nice and short cropped without overgrazing it if in an appropriately large space, to the point of turning it to muck and mud like the hooves on your goats would do to your lawn from the damage of overgrazing. Last, but probably the most important piece of advice I can give to someone who is a new goat owner is to make sure that you're purchasing from a reputable breeder. The biggest thing that can separate a good breeder from a bad breeder is whether or not they test for communicable diseases in their goats. The test that you're looking for is CAE and CL testing. Feel free to plug those into Google and do a deep dive into those diseases, but they're very, very contagious and can absolutely decimate herds of goats. It's kind of like the goat equivalent of catching herpes or AIDS or something else that is lifelong. You're never going to get rid of it. You're always going to be a carrier of it, and how detrimental it can be to quality of life. Good breeders test their herds, and they test them often. They have closed herds, or every single time they bring in a new animal, they're observing appropriate quarantine guidelines and retesting entire herds every time they bring in a new animal. That's what we do. That's the gold standard. It's not cheap to get these tests done. You got to get a blood draw done, which you can do yourself. It's not that difficult, but it can be a little scary. At least it was for me the first time that I ever tried to take a blood draw on a goat, because you do it in the neck. I actually copped out and had a friend who with veterinary experience help me with that. So it can be difficult and scary to do it yourself. It can be done, or you can order your vet to do it and send the blood tests off either to your vet's preferred laboratory or to a place like WSU or other labs maybe more local to you to get the blood tests done. There are also other diseases to test for, like brucellosis and Jones disease, that are all very important tests to have done, so you know that you are buying from a breeder who has certified healthy animals and who is spending that extra dollar towards the long-term care of the animals that he or she is breeding and the rest of the community and who he or she is supplying animals to. So after 5 years in this gig, those are my current 5 best tips on and things you need to know before you get goats. If you like this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so that you can get updated whenever we post videos. Have a great one.